So it has been a minute since I have made a video, and it is not because I am trying to neglect anything in my life. We got some big things coming down the pipe, which will be announced on probably a new YouTube page, just some different offerings and ideas that are going to be coming out. And please kind of keep an eye out on my page with just some announcements of a new idea, a new business, and hopefully a new way to think about all the topics that I like to talk about, kind of related to sex and pornography addiction, but so much more, and in what I believe to be a more honest and fruitful way, actually. Which is actually where I want to start today. I have been noodling with an idea, and I will admit this is very new noodling for me, meaning I have not spent a whole lot of time teasing this idea out. And so I thought, while it's fresh on my mind, I might as well record about it and see what can't come to the surface here in a video. And hopefully you can glean something from it or not. And really it is centered around this word addiction. I don't shy away from the fact that I don't love labels. I'm not a huge fan of labels. I understand labels can be helpful in understanding things. However, when it comes to this work that I do in working with individuals who are participating in behaviors that hurt people, labels often become a scapegoat, something to point to that doesn't require me to own fully what I'm doing. And that's ultimately why I do not like labels. And in this field, that's really difficult because I have a whole book called the DSM-5 filled with labels. And these labels can become identities, not all the time. And I want to be mindful of how helpful they can be. But I also want to talk about the other side of it, which is how harmful they could potentially be, especially when it comes to harm that is done to other people when people are hurting. And so this word addict, I got a big problem with this word right now. I bristle when I hear it. I bristle when I say it. And so I just want to honor that. I want to listen to my own intuition and kind of tease this out a little bit. And I'm open to this perspective shifting and changing, and I hope it does. But where I'm at right now is I am bristling. I'm bristling at this word because what I experience over and over again is an over-reliance on this word to identify choices that people make in their life. And my fear is that with any time somebody absolves themselves of responsibility of the choices that they make, they lose an opportunity to take full agency and autonomy back in their lives. So I teased this out in my group the other day. I wrote on the board, I'm a sex addict. And then under that sentence, I wrote, I cheat on my wife and lie about it. And I've been doing this for years. I could tell you that in my experience working with people who have been harmed by these types of sexual behaviors, in particular betrayed partners, a lot of the initial reaction that I hear and experience when I have an opportunity to talk to a betrayed partner is, there's something about that word, I'm a sex addict, that just feels off. They may not be able to name it. They may not be able to articulate it super well, but there does seemingly feel like this guy or this woman that they're married with automatically gets a built-in excuse that absolves them of some level of ownership that will never be attained unless they just are specific about what they're doing. And it is no shock or surprise to anybody who has worked with me or listened to my videos that I am a significant proponent of owning what you're doing. Let's just talk about what you did, not what you're going to do, not what you meant to do, not your intentions, but let's talk about what you've done and the impact that it has on the person across from you, in particular your spouse in a lot of the cases of my clients or their partners. And so this phrase, I'm an addict, if you go to 12-step meetings, you start off every meeting owning it. Even in the meetings that I run, a lot of my clients choose to introduce themselves followed by I'm a recovering sex addict, or I'm a recovering pornography addict, or just in general, I'm an addict. And I wonder what a meeting or what life would look like if we were to introduce ourselves. I'm not suggesting this by any means because I think it would lead to a lot of awkward conversations. However, what would it happen if I introduced myself and said, hi, I'm Austin, and I've cheated on my wife multiple times and lied to her about it and harmed her in ways that I can't even imagine to begin to understand. Now, even though I'm probably not going to go around to every new person that I meet and introduce myself in that way, what if I started in the circles of people who are on the same journey as me? What if I started to talk like that with my spouse? Where instead of pointing to my addiction or my disease, I labeled the behaviors and choices that I was making. Where I don't mind the addiction language is it can become a really helpful tool to understand behaviors, but it can all be a very harmful tool in taking ownership and responsibility for the choices and behaviors that I've participated in. And so I'm wrestling with this term. I'm wrestling with this term, and I want to encourage those of you that prescribe to the addiction model, those of you that have found a lot of hope and healing in the addiction model, which there are plenty, to wrestle with this idea a little bit. Because what I've experienced in my own life personally, and also in my lives with my clients, there's almost this glass ceiling that they reach in recovery where they have to stay within this addiction box, and to bust out of it would require something. And I don't know if it's this exactly, but it's an idea that I have that I want to kind of play around with a little bit more because I ultimately think it will lead to more fruitful relationships, particularly the relationships where most of the harm has been done. Because I have not met a betrayed partner who isn't clamoring for a spouse who takes responsibility and ownership for the choices that they have done and truly see them and the impact that they have caused. And I can only imagine what type of healing could be possible if that was the case. Now, I'm not saying this is simple or it's easy or even if it's hard. I just think it is a different way of thinking about this idea of addiction. Moving a little bit away from the disease model, saying I have this disease that I'm infected with, therefore I'm not totally responsible for, but there are a lot of things that have contributed to this. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I made choices and those choices hurt you. And I see that the ways that they've hurt you. And I am responsible for the pain that you feel right now. That to me just feels more fruitful and healing. It also feels more uncomfortable, which I'm a fan of. We need to lead into that discomfort. And so my encouragement is to toy with that a little bit, play around with it. If you're a betrayed partner and you're listening to this and this resonates with you, honor that. If you're a betrayed partner and you're listening to this and you're saying, I don't like that, I like the idea of having something that absolves a little bit of that responsibility, because then ultimately I have to toy with the uncomfortable reality that my husband chose something over me and he knew what he was doing. That is uncomfortable. And I think that's an uncomfortable conversation that has to be had in order for full healing and restoration to take place. So that's my encouragement today. What if you were to drop the labels? What if you were to drop this idea that you are an addict and start owning the choices that you're making in life?